The grand hall of the Galactic Council Station gleamed with polished metal and floating holographic displays. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy had gathered for the military exposition, the most important event of the decade. Outside the massive viewing windows, warships of every design hung in the black void of space like jewels on display. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the edge of the human delegation, her uniform crisp and her face carefully neutral. She had been warned about this moment. Admiral Chen had looked her in the eye before she left Earth and said, "They're going to laugh at us. Let them." The Velkari ambassador was speaking now, his insect-like mandibles clicking with pride. On the holographic display above them, his species' newest warship rotated slowly. It was a beauty, all smooth curves and gleaming silver built for pure speed. The technical specifications scrolled past: maximum velocity at 0.97 light speed, plasma cannons that could fire 16 rounds per second, shields that could regenerate in milliseconds. The crowd murmured with approval. The Velkari had always been the fastest species in the galaxy, and they never let anyone forget it. Next came the Chromath Empire. Their ambassador was a massive reptilian creature, scales like armor plates covering his body. His species' dreadnought appeared on the display, and the crowd actually gasped. It was enormous, bristling with weapons powered by 3 fusion cores. The Chromath had built a ship designed for one purpose: overwhelming firepower. "Our enemies will not outrun death," the Chromath ambassador growled. "They will face it head-on." More applause. The Ishan Confederacy went next, showing off their elegant destroyers with psychic targeting systems. Then the Talvex Consortium with their drone carriers. Each presentation was more impressive than the last. Finally, it was humanity's turn. Vasquez walked to the center platform, her heart steady despite knowing what was coming. She activated the holographic display, and the UHS Perseverance appeared above the crowd. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then someone laughed. Then another. Within moments, the entire hall was filled with the sound of alien amusement in dozens of different forms. Clicks, hisses, warbles, and sounds that had no human equivalent. The Perseverance looked nothing like a warship. It was blocky and industrial, more like a mobile space station than a military vessel. Where other ships were sleek, it was angular. Where they were fast, it was slow. The specifications told the whole embarrassing story. Maximum velocity at 0.32 light speed. Kinetic projectile weapons, armor plating that made up 60% of the ship's mass. "Is this a joke?" someone called out from the crowd. The Chromath ambassador, who had been so fierce earlier, now looked at Vasquez with something like pity. "Captain, I mean no disrespect to your species, but this vessel appears to be a cargo hauler." More laughter. Vasquez felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice level. "The Perseverance is designed for extended operations in hostile territory. It carries advanced sensor arrays and strategic analysis systems." "Strategic analysis?" A Velkari officer interrupted, his translator making his words sound sharply amused. "You cannot analyze your way out of enemy weapons fire. Speed is survival. Your ship would be destroyed before it could even target an opponent." The crowd agreed with clicking and buzzing approval. Vasquez continued her presentation, explaining the ship's capabilities, but no one was listening anymore. They had already dismissed humanity's contribution as irrelevant. When the presentation ended, Vasquez returned to her delegation. Commander James Park, her first officer, looked like he wanted to punch something. "This is humiliating." "It's strategic," Vasquez replied quietly, though her own face was hot with suppressed anger. That evening, the various delegations mingled in the station's diplomatic quarter. Vasquez tried to discuss tactics with other military officers, but they treated her like a child playing at war. The Velkari captain she approached literally turned his back on her mid-sentence to talk to someone else. Only one person showed any interest: Ambassador Theknir of the Chromath Empire. But his interest was the condescending kind, like a teacher humoring a slow student. "Your species is young in the galaxy," he said, his voice rumbling deep. "You joined the council only 200 years ago. You lack the technology, the experience, the traditions of warfare that the rest of us have refined over millennia." He gestured toward the window where the Perseverance floated among the other warships, looking dull and primitive by comparison. "That vessel is a perfect example of humanity's enthusiasm outpacing its capabilities." Vasquez met his eyes. "Perhaps appearances can be deceiving." Theknir laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. In war, Captain, appearances are often reality. A slow ship is a dead ship. The party continued late into the night cycle, but Vasquez left early. She took a shuttle back to the Perseverance where her crew waited. They had all watched the presentation on the ship's screens. They had all heard the laughter. "Permission to speak freely, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Sarah Chen, the tactical officer. "Granted. Are we really going to let them treat us like that?" Vasquez looked around at her crew. They were angry, humiliated, eager to prove themselves good. She would need that fire in the days to come. "What we're going to do," she said carefully, "is our job. Let them laugh now. They won't be laughing for long." She was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Council's military command. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Admiral Corthan, the Ishin who commanded the Joint Defense Forces. "All vessels, we have a situation. The Scraith swarm has attacked the colony of New Venetia in the Outer Territories. Multiple raids confirmed. All available warships are to proceed immediately to intercept." The briefing continued with coordinates and tactical information. The Scraith were a nomadic species, raiders who swept through systems like locusts, taking what they wanted and destroying the rest. They had been quiet for a decade, but now they were moving again. Within minutes, the other warships began departing the station. The Velkari ships vanished in flashes of light, their FTL drives engaging almost instantly. The Chromath dreadnoughts followed, slower but still impressive. One by one, the great warships of the galaxy rushed toward the threatened colonies. The Perseverance began its own departure procedures, but everything took longer. The FTL drive needed more time to charge. The navigation systems needed more careful calculation. By the time they jumped, the other ships were already 3 star systems ahead. Commander Park stood beside Vasquez on the bridge, watching the stars blur into the familiar tunnel of FTL travel. "We're going to arrive too late again." "Probably," Vasquez agreed. "Then what's the point?" Vasquez didn't answer. She was looking at the long-range sensor data, watching the information pour in from across the sector. The Perseverance's sensors were powerful, more powerful than anyone realized. They could detect things other ships missed, track patterns other computers couldn't calculate. She thought about something her grandfather had told her. Back when she was a girl learning to hunt in the mountains of Colorado, "Speed isn't everything, Elena. Sometimes the best way to catch something is to figure out where it's going and just wait there." The Scraith had just made their first move. They would make more. And the Perseverance would be watching, learning, waiting. Let them laugh, Vasquez thought. Let them all laugh. 6 months had passed since the war with the Scraith began, and the galaxy was bleeding. Captain Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Perseverance, reviewing the latest casualty reports. 17 colonies destroyed or damaged. 43 warships lost, thousands of civilians dead or missing. The numbers kept growing, and the Council forces seemed powerless to stop it. The problem was simple. The Scraith refused to fight fair. They never committed their full force to any battle. Instead, they attacked in small groups, hit hard and fast, then scattered before the Council's warships could arrive. By the time the Velkari speed cruisers showed up, the Scraith were gone. By the time the Chromath dreadnoughts arrived, there was nothing left but wreckage and smoke. The Perseverance was always the last to arrive. Always too slow, always too late. The crew had stopped counting how many times they jumped into a system only to find the battle already over. The enemy already gone. Commander Park was reviewing tactical data from the latest engagement, his face tight with frustration. The Scraith hit the mining colony at Epsilon Tertius 4 hours ago. The Velkari Rapid Response Fleet arrived 2 hours later. The Scraith had already left. Casualties: 3,000 civilians, 2 defensive platforms destroyed. Vasquez nodded, making notes on her personal display. Park watched her, confused. The captain had been making these notes after every battle, filling her computer with data that seemed useless. They never arrived in time to fight, so what did the information matter? "Captain," he said finally, "what are we doing? We've been chasing ghosts for half a year. Every time we arrive somewhere, the enemy is gone. The other fleets mock us openly now. Yesterday, a Chromath commander sent us a message suggesting we should just go home and let the real warships handle the fighting." Vasquez looked up from her display. "And what did you tell him?" I didn't respond. What could I say? He's right. We're useless out here. We're not useless, Vasquez said quietly. We're just fighting a different battle than everyone else. Before Park could ask what she meant, another emergency broadcast came through. The Scraith had hit 2 colonies simultaneously, one in the Karthik sector and one near the Talvex homeworld. The Council fleet split up to respond to both threats. Set course for Karthix, Admiral Corthan ordered over the Joint Command channel. Vasquez watched the holographic tactical display. The other ships were already moving, already calculating jump coordinates. She looked at her own navigation officer. Belay that order. Set course for the Tannhauser system instead. The bridge went silent. Park stared at her. Captain, the Admiral just gave us direct orders. I heard him. Vasquez pulled up a different star chart, one that showed no active combat, no distress signals, nothing but empty space. Take us to Tannhauser. Maximum speed. Park's hand hovered over the communication panel. He could report her to the Admiral. This was disobeying orders during wartime. But something in Vasquez's face stopped him. She looked absolutely certain, like someone who knew a secret that no one else did. Yes, Captain, he said finally. The Perseverance changed course, heading away from the battle, away from where every other ship was going. Within minutes, Admiral Corthan's angry voice came over the private command channel. Captain Vasquez, explain yourself. Why are you not responding to the Karthix emergency? Admiral, I'm pursuing a tactical opportunity in the Tannhauser system. There is nothing in the Tannhauser system. It's empty space and asteroids. The battle is at Karthix. You will redirect immediately or I will have you relieved of command. Vasquez took a slow breath. Admiral, with respect, the Council forces have been reacting to Scraith attacks for 6 months. We chase them from system to system, always arriving too late. I'm proposing a different approach. What approach? Running away to an empty system? I'm not running away, sir. I'm getting ahead of them. There was a long pause. When Corthan spoke again, his voice was cold. You have 24 hours, Captain. If you have nothing to show for this insubordination, you will be removed from command and the Perseverance will be reassigned. Do you understand? Yes, sir, the channel closed. Park looked at Vasquez with wide eyes. Captain, you just bet your career on an empty system. What if you're wrong? Vasquez smiled, but there was no humor in it. Then I'm wrong and I go home in disgrace. But I'm not wrong, James. I've been tracking the Scraith movements for 6 months. Every attack, every jump, every pattern. The Perseverance might be slow, but our sensors are the best in the fleet. While everyone else was fighting, we were watching, learning. She pulled up a complex display showing 6 months of Scraith movement data. Red lines crisscrossed the star map, showing attack vectors, jump points, and supply routes. It looked like chaos at first, but Vasquez highlighted certain sections and patterns began to emerge. The Scraith aren't random, she explained. They're nomadic, yes, but they follow resource lines. They need fuel, food, repair materials. Every few weeks they return to hidden supply depots to resupply. Then they launch new attacks from those positions. Park studied the map. You think Tannhauser is a supply depot? I know it is. Look at the pattern. Every attack wave originates from systems within 3 jumps of Tannhauser. The asteroid field there provides perfect cover for hidden facilities, and based on their current attack tempo and resource consumption, they'll need to resupply in the next 72 hours. Park felt his heart start to race. If we're there waiting, then we don't have to be faster than them, Vasquez finished. We just have to be there first. The Perseverance traveled through FTL space, slower than any other warship in the fleet, but steady and sure. The crew began preparations, not knowing exactly what they were preparing for, but trusting their captain. Lieutenant Chen approached Vasquez privately. Ma'am, even if you're right and the Scraith come to Tannhauser, we're one ship. The intelligence suggests they travel in groups of 20 to 30 vessels. How are we supposed to fight those odds? Vasquez looked at her tactical officer with a grim smile. Sarah, you're thinking about this wrong. Everyone keeps comparing the Perseverance to the other warships in the fleet, saying we're too slow, too weak, too poorly armed. But we're not trying to be like those ships. We were designed for something different. What? Everything about the Perseverance is built for one specific type of combat. Long-duration engagements in prepared positions. Our armor can take hits that would destroy a Velkari cruiser. Our weapons are kinetic, which means they work perfectly in asteroid fields where energy weapons lose effectiveness. Our sensor suite can track hundreds of targets simultaneously. And our FTL inhibitor system... She trailed off and Chen's eyes widened. We can trap them, exactly. The Council's fast ships try to chase the Scraith and kill them quickly, but the Scraith are faster, so they escape. We're going to do something the enemy won't expect. We're going to pin them down and grind them into dust. 3 days later, the Perseverance arrived at the Tannhauser system and found it exactly as predicted. Empty. Just a sun, some dead planets, and a massive asteroid field. Vasquez gave her orders calmly. Deploy the mines. Pattern Delta 7. I want every major exit vector covered. Navigation. Find us a good position in the densest part of the asteroid field. Somewhere with multiple escape routes for us but limited sight lines for the enemy. Tactical. Begin deploying sensor drones in a 30 million kilometer sphere. I want to know the instant anything enters this system. The crew worked with precision. They had drilled for this even though they hadn't known what this was until now. Thousands of mines drifted out into the asteroid field disguised as rocks. Tiny drones spread out like invisible eyes. Then they waited. Park stood beside Vasquez watching the chronometer. 20 hours had passed since they arrived. Nothing. 30 hours. Still nothing. 40 hours. Captain, he said quietly. Admiral Corthan's deadline is in 4 hours. I know. What if they don't come? Vasquez didn't answer. She just kept watching the sensor display, her face calm. 3 hours and 40 minutes after Park's warning, the sensors lit up. Multiple FTL signatures, emerging at the edge of the system. 27 Screeth warships materialized in a loose formation, heading directly for the asteroid field. Vasquez felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. Not fear, not excitement, just certainty. All hands to battle stations, she said quietly. Power down all non-essential systems. Go dark, let them come to us. The hunt was over. Now came the killing. The Screeth fleet moved through the Tannhauser system like sharks through dark water, confident and unhurried. They had no reason to fear an ambush. This was their territory, their secret supply depot. The Council forces were systems away, chasing their tails as always. On the bridge of the Perseverance, Captain Vasquez watched the enemy ships approach on her tactical display. The crew was silent, every person focused on their station. The ship itself was running on minimal power, its massive bulk hidden among the larger asteroids, just another piece of rock in an endless field of debris. They're splitting into 3 groups, Commander Park whispered, as if the enemy might hear him across the vacuum of space. Probably heading to different supply caches. Vasquez nodded. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Sarah, begin moving the mines into position. Slowly. I don't want any energy signatures that might alert them. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across her console. Throughout the asteroid field, thousands of disguised mines began subtle course corrections, using cold gas thrusters that produced almost no detectable signature. They drifted on new trajectories slowly, patiently, moving into position around the 3 Scraeth groups like a net drawing closed. One of the Scraeth vessels passed within 200 meters of the Perseverance. Through the view screen, Vasquez could see its hull. Organic-looking, covered in irregular plates that resembled chitin or bone. The aliens had evolved in space, adapted to the void in ways that made their ships look more grown than built. Park held his breath as the enemy ship drifted past. If they scanned in this direction, if they detected the Perseverance's power signature. But they didn't. The Scraeth moved deeper into the asteroid field. Toward their hidden caches, Captain, Park said softly. Permission to speak? Granted. How did you know? How did you predict they would come here at this exact time? Vasquez kept her eyes on the display, but she allowed herself a small smile. You remember back at the exposition when everyone was showing off their fast ships and powerful weapons? Everyone mocked the Perseverance for being slow, but they missed the point. This ship isn't about speed or firepower. It's about information. She pulled up a section of her display and transferred it to Park's console. For 6 months, while the other warships were fighting, we were doing something else. We were mapping. Our sensors are 3 times more powerful than anything the Velkari have. Our processing computers can analyze patterns that other systems would miss. Every time the Scraeth attacked, we recorded everything. Jump signatures, attack vectors, ship configurations, timing patterns. Park studied the data, his eyes widening as he began to understand the complexity of what he was seeing. 6 months of collected information, processed through advanced prediction algorithms, cross-referenced with resource consumption rates and stellar cartography. You turned warfare into mathematics, he said. No, Vasquez corrected. I turned it into hunting. Humans have been hunters for millions of years, James. Long before we had spaceships or computers, we learned how to track prey, not by being faster but by being smarter. By watching, learning, predicting. A human hunter on Earth could track an animal for days, reading signs in broken grass and disturbed soil, predicting where it would go to drink water, where it would rest. We didn't catch prey by outrunning it. We caught it by being there when it arrived. She gestured at the tactical display where the Screeth ships were now fully committed to the asteroid field. Scattered into 3 groups, their formation loose and undefended. These aliens are fast. They're dangerous, but they're also predictable. They follow the same patterns because those patterns work. They've never had to change because no one has ever been patient enough to learn how they think. Until now, Park said. Until now. The Screeth reached their supply caches, hidden facilities built into hollowed-out asteroids. Ships began docking procedures, fuel lines extending, cargo bays opening. They were vulnerable, scattered, focused on the routine work of resupply. Vasquez opened a ship-wide channel. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. All hands, this is the captain. For 6 months we've been called too slow, too weak, too useless. Every other ship in the fleet thinks we're a joke. Maybe we are. Maybe the Perseverance is the slowest, ugliest, most awkward warship in the galaxy. She paused. And in that pause, the crew felt something shift in the air, something cold and sharp and final. But right now we're exactly where we need to be, and the enemy has nowhere to run. This is what we were built for. Not to chase the enemy across the stars, but to be waiting when they arrive. Not to win quick battles, but to win the war. Today we show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. She looked at Lieutenant Chen. Tactical. You are free to engage. Chen's hand moved to the weapons control and she allowed herself a fierce smile. Yes, ma'am, finally. The asteroid field lit up with death. The disguised mines activated simultaneously, their proximity sensors detecting Screeth vessels within detonation range. The explosions were massive, turning space into a storm of fire and shrapnel. 3 Screeth ships died in the first 5 seconds, their hulls shredded by hundreds of impacts. The remaining vessels immediately tried to scatter, their survival instincts overriding all other programming. But the Perseverance had spent 3 days preparing this battlefield, and Vasquez had thought of everything. Deploy FTL inhibitors, she ordered. Full power. I want a sphere 20 million kilometers across. Nothing jumps without my permission. Throughout the asteroid field, hidden devices activated, generating a massive field that made faster-than-light travel impossible. The Screeth ships tried to jump and failed, their drives cycling uselessly. They were trapped. All weapons, open fire. Target the supply caches first. I want their fuel and ammunition destroyed. The Perseverance emerged from its hiding place, its kinetic railguns opening up with devastating precision. Unlike energy weapons that could be partially deflected by shields or disrupted by the asteroid field's magnetic interference, the railgun projectiles were simple. Dense metal slugs accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. When they hit with the force of small nuclear weapons. A supply cache exploded, sending a chain reaction through 3 nearby asteroids. Secondary explosions rippled outward as stored fuel and ammunition cooked off. 4 more Screeth ships caught in the blast zone were destroyed or crippled. The remaining enemy vessels began to fight back, but they were disorganized, panicked. They had entered this system expecting safety and found only death. Their weapons fire was wild, hitting asteroids more often than targets. The Perseverance, by contrast, moved through the battlefield with methodical purpose. Its heavy armor absorbed hits that would have destroyed the faster, lighter ships of the other Council races. When a Screeth plasma bolt struck the hull, it scorched armor but didn't penetrate. When kinetic projectiles impacted, they were absorbed by layers of ablative plating. This is what we were designed to survive, Park said, watching damage reports that showed superficial hits but no critical systems affected. We're not built to avoid damage. We're built to take it and keep fighting. Vasquez nodded, her attention fixed on the tactical situation. The Screeth were trying to regroup, but she had planned for that too. Deploy drone package Alpha. I want them herded toward Sector 7. Small automated drones launched from the Perseverance, not to attack but to threaten, firing warning shots that pushed the Screeth vessels away from escape routes and toward a denser part of the asteroid field. The enemy commander, whoever they were, took the bait and led his surviving ships deeper into the rocks, thinking they could hide and recover. But Vasquez had more mines waiting there, and more drones, and clear firing lanes for her railguns. The battle lasted 4 hours, not because the Screeth were winning, but because Vasquez was methodical. She cut off every escape route. She destroyed every supply cache. She disabled ships rather than destroying them when possible, forcing other vessels to waste time and energy on rescue attempts. When it finally ended, 11 Screeth ships had been completely destroyed. 8 more were crippled, drifting without power. The rest had suffered significant damage. Not a single vessel escaped. The Perseverance had taken damage across 15% of its hull, but every critical system remained operational. No casualties. No critical failures. Park stared at the tactical display in disbelief. We just defeated a Screeth raiding fleet, alone, with 1 ship. Vasquez was already thinking ahead, looking at sensor data from the battle, analyzing enemy tactics for future reference. Send a message to Admiral Corthan. Tell him we have prisoners, salvage, and intelligence on Screeth supply routes. And James? Yes, Captain? Tell him we're moving to intercept the next supply depot. We're not done hunting. Throughout the galaxy, news of the battle began to spread. The slow human ship, the one everyone had mocked, had just accomplished what the combined might of the Council's fast cruisers could not. A complete and total victory against the Screeth. And in the dark spaces between the stars, other Screeth commanders began to hear a new name spoken with fear: Perseverance. The human ship that was always waiting, always there, impossible to escape because it never chased. It simply knew where you were going and arrived first. The war changed after Tannhauser. Admiral Corthan had been skeptical when he received Captain Vasquez's first message. But when the Perseverance transmitted detailed intelligence on Screeth supply networks, prisoner interrogation records, and salvaged equipment, skepticism turned to shock. When news of the victory spread through the Council fleet, shock turned to confusion. How had the slowest ship in the fleet accomplished what no one else could? On the bridge of his flagship, Corthan studied the battle recordings with his tactical staff. The Ishan Admiral's psychic abilities let him read emotional currents, and right now his staff was radiating disbelief mixed with embarrassment. She predicted their arrival, a Velkari officer said, his mandibles clicking nervously, 3 days in advance. How is that possible? Corthan rewound the recording, watching the Screeth fleet enter the system, watching the trap close with mechanical precision. The humans have been mapping Screeth movements for 6 months. While we chased the enemy from battle to battle, they were learning, pattern analysis, predictive modeling. They turned intelligence gathering into an art form. A Chromath commander shook his massive head. But they're still too slow. One victory doesn't change the fact that the Perseverance takes twice as long to reach any destination as our ships. Perhaps, Corthan said quietly. But what use is speed if you're always running to the wrong location? Before anyone could respond, a priority message came through. The Perseverance had engaged another Screeth supply depot at the Helian Rift. 12 enemy ships destroyed, 4 captured. 0 human casualties. The Velkari officer pulled up a star chart. But that's impossible. We didn't even know the Screeth were operating in that sector. Our scouts reported it as clear just 2 days ago. Corthan felt a chill run through him. Captain Vasquez knew. She predicted it. Another message came through an hour later. The Perseverance had appeared at a Screeth refueling station in the outer dark, a region of space so remote that the Council had never bothered to patrol it. 8 enemy vessels destroyed. The station itself was now under human control, and engineers were analyzing its technology. How? The Chromath commander demanded. How does she know where they'll be? Over the next 3 weeks, the pattern continued. The Perseverance appeared at location after location, always ahead of the Screeth, always waiting. Supply depots, refueling stations, hidden shipyards, rally points. Every critical node in the Screeth logistics network was systematically destroyed. The fast ships of the Council fleet started arriving at battle sites only to find them already finished. The wreckage still burning, the Perseverance already moving to its next target. On the 5th week, Corthan received a message from Ambassador Theknir of the Chromath Empire. The massive reptilian's face filled the holographic display, but he looked shaken in a way Corthan had never seen before. Admiral, I need to speak with you about the human ship, privately. They met in a secure conference room. Teknir brought up a tactical analysis his military intelligence had prepared. It showed every Scraith engagement over the past 7 months with the Perseverance's movements overlaid in blue. Look at this, Teknir said, his voice low. In the first 6 months of the war, the Perseverance was always late. Always arrived after the battle was over. We thought they were incompetent. We thought they were too slow to matter. He highlighted the last month of data. Now look, for the past 4 weeks, the Perseverance has been at every Scraith supply point before the enemy arrives, not responding to attacks, waiting for them. They're not reacting anymore. They're predicting. Corthan studied the data, and understanding dawned cold and complete. They were never incompetent. They were gathering information. Every battle they arrived late to, every engagement they missed, they were learning, mapping, building a predictive model of enemy behavior. Exactly, Teknir said. And now they're using that model to destroy the Scraith supply chain piece by piece. Do you understand what this means? The humans weren't trying to fight the same war we were fighting. They were fighting a completely different war. A slower war. A patient war. He pulled up another display, this one showing Scraith attack patterns. Over the past month, the frequency of raids had dropped by 60%. The intensity of attacks had decreased. Enemy formations were becoming cautious, hesitant. They're becoming afraid, Corthan said. Not of us, Teknir corrected. Of the Perseverance. The Scraith can outrun any ship in our fleet, but they can't outrun a ship that's already at their destination before they arrive. Imagine the psychology of that. Every time they jump to a supply depot, there's a chance the human ship is waiting. Every refueling stop could be an ambush. They're developing paranoia. Their entire tactical doctrine is collapsing. Corthan felt something he rarely experienced, a deep respect mixed with unease. We mocked them. We called their ship a joke. We were fools, Teknir said bluntly. Speed and firepower are useless if your enemy knows where you're going. The humans understood something we didn't. In warfare, information is more valuable than velocity, and patience is more deadly than aggression. Aboard the Perseverance, Captain Vasquez was exhausted but satisfied. Her crew had been operating at combat readiness for a month straight, jumping from engagement to engagement, but morale had never been higher. Every successful ambush vindicated them. Every destroyed supply depot proved that their way of fighting was valid. Commander Park brought her the latest intelligence analysis. Captain, we've identified 3 more potential supply locations. But there's something else. The Scraith communication traffic we've intercepted shows they're changing their patterns. They're becoming erratic, unpredictable. I think they know we're hunting them. Vasquez nodded. Good. Fear makes people sloppy. When the Scraith were confident, they followed efficient routes and logical patterns. Now they're starting to panic, making emotional decisions instead of rational ones. That actually makes them easier to predict in some ways. How? Because frightened prey runs to safety, and we know where their safe havens are. She pulled up a star map showing the Scraith home territories deep in unclaimed space. They're going to fall back, regroup, try to rebuild their logistics from secure positions, which means they'll concentrate their forces. And when they do... She didn't finish the sentence, but Park understood. When the Scraith concentrated, when they stopped being a scattered guerrilla force and became a massed fleet, the Council's powerful warships could finally bring their firepower to bear. We're hurting them, Park said. All these months we've been pushing them toward a decisive battle. Exactly. The fast ships of the Council can't catch scattered raiders, but they're very good at destroying massed formations. We're using our strengths and theirs in combination. A priority alert interrupted them. Long-range sensors had detected massive Scraith fleet movements. Not scattered raiding parties this time, but hundreds of ships moving together, heading in system toward Council territory. Lieutenant Chen pulled up the tactical data. Captain, this is their entire fleet. Everything they have left. And they're heading... She paused, her face going pale. They're heading toward Earth. The bridge went silent. Every human officer felt their blood run cold. The Scraith were done playing games. If they couldn't defeat the Council's military, they would strike at humanity's heart. Vasquez felt a spike of fear but pushed it down. She had expected this or something like it. A cornered animal was at its most dangerous. Get me Admiral Corthan, and calculate jump coordinates for Earth. We need to beat them there. Park looked at her. Captain, even at maximum speed, we'll arrive at least 6 hours after them. The Scraith will reach Earth first. I know, but we won't be alone. Admiral, send the following message to all Council fleet elements. Converge on Earth. The enemy is coming to us. This is where we end it. Corthan's reply came quickly. Captain Vasquez, my fleet can reach Earth before the Scraith arrive. We'll defend your homeworld. With respect, Admiral, you won't defeat them by defending. I'm transmitting coordinates for an intercept point. A debris field in the outer Sol system, 3 astronomical units from Earth. If we position there, we can catch the Scraith before they reach the inner planets. There was a pause. You want us to wait? To let them come to a position of your choosing? Yes, sir. I've been hunting the Scraith for 7 months. I know how they think, how they move, how they fight. Trust me one more time. I'll show you how to beat them, not by chasing them across the galaxy, but by being exactly where we need to be when they arrive. Another pause. Longer this time. Then Corthan's voice returned, firm and decided. Very well, Captain. Send your coordinates. The Council fleet will follow the Perseverance's lead. Don't make me regret this. Vasquez smiled grimly. I won't, sir. See you at the debris field. Perseverance out. She turned to her crew. All hands prepare for jump. We're going home. And we're bringing the entire Scraith fleet with us. The ship thrummed as the FTL drive spun up. In 3 days they would reach Earth. In 3 days the war would end one way or another. Vasquez looked at the star map showing the converging forces. The Council fleet, the Perseverance, and the Scraith Armada, all heading toward one point in space. The hunt was almost over. Now came the final stand. The debris field in the outer Sol system was a graveyard of ancient asteroids and frozen comets, a region of space where broken rock drifted in the darkness beyond Neptune's orbit. It was here that Captain Elena Vasquez had chosen to make her stand. The Perseverance arrived first, as always. Not because it was faster, but because Vasquez had calculated exactly when the enemy would arrive and worked backward from there. The ship moved through the debris field, its sensors mapping every rock, every trajectory, every hiding place. Deploy all assets, Vasquez ordered. Mines, drones, sensor networks. I want this entire field under our control before the Council fleet arrives. The crew worked with practiced efficiency. Over 3 days they turned the debris field into a killing ground. Thousands of mines drifted among the asteroids, programmed to recognize Scraith ship signatures. Hundreds of drones spread out like invisible eyes. FTL inhibitor satellites positioned at strategic points ready to trap the enemy fleet inside the engagement zone. Commander Park watched the preparations from the tactical station. You know, when this started, I thought you were crazy. A slow ship trying to fight a war. But you weren't trying to be like the other ships. You were playing a completely different game. Vasquez checked the chronometer. The Council fleet would arrive in 6 hours. The Scraith in 12. Every species in the galaxy looked at warfare the same way. Fast ships, big weapons, quick battles. They were all playing the same game, just trying to be better at it than each other. She pulled up historical records on her personal display, images from Earth's past. Ancient hunters tracking prey across savannas. Wolves following herds for days until their target was exhausted. Humans chasing animals under the hot sun until they collapsed from heat stroke. Humans evolved differently, she continued. We weren't the fastest runners or the strongest fighters, but we could run longer than anything else. We could track better. We could think further ahead. We won by being patient, by being smart, by never giving up. That's what the Perseverance is. Not a warship trying to be something it's not, but a tool designed around humanity's actual strengths. The Council fleet began arriving. First came the Velkari cruisers, their sleek forms sliding into formation with graceful precision. Then the Chromath dreadnoughts, massive and intimidating, the Ishan destroyers, the Talvex carriers. One by one, the warships of a dozen species assembled in the debris field. Admiral Corthan's flagship took position beside the Perseverance. The Ishan's face appeared on the main display. Captain Vasquez, the Council fleet is assembled. 247 warships, including your vessel. The Scraith fleet numbers approximately 300 ships based on our intelligence. We are outnumbered. Numbers aren't everything, Admiral. We have the position, we have the preparation, and we have something the Scraith don't expect. Unity. They've spent 7 months fighting scattered responses and individual ships. They've never faced a coordinated defense. Corthan's psychic senses were reading something in Vasquez's emotional state, something that made him pause. "You're not afraid." "I'm terrified," Vasquez admitted. "My homeworld is 12 hours away. If we fail here, Earth is defenseless. But fear is useful. It focuses the mind. Admiral, transmit the tactical plan to all ships. When the Scraith arrive, I need everyone to follow the pattern exactly." The waiting began. 6 hours passed. The crews of 247 warships stood at battle stations, watching sensors, checking weapons, preparing for the largest fleet engagement in Council history. Lieutenant Sarah Chen approached Vasquez quietly. "Captain, I've been running simulations. Even with our preparations, even with the ambush advantage, this is going to be close. The Scraith have numbers on their side." "I know. A lot of people are going to die today." Vasquez looked at her tactical officer, seeing the fear behind the professional mask. "Yes, but a lot more will die if we fail. That's the weight of command, Sarah. We don't get to choose easy options. We get to choose the best option from a list of terrible ones." The sensors lit up. Multiple FTL signatures at the edge of the system. The Scraith had arrived. 300 warships materialized in a massive formation, their organic-looking hulls bristling with weapons. At the center of the fleet was a vessel twice the size of any other, a command ship covered in bony protrusions and weapon ports. Aboard that ship, Warlord Crotch surveyed the system ahead, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with predatory satisfaction. The human homeworld was close. The Council fleet had assembled to defend it as predicted. Good. Today, he would destroy them all. Today, he would break humanity and show the galaxy that the Scraith swarm could not be defeated. His sensors detected the debris field ahead, saw the Council warships positioned throughout it. A trap, obviously, but a trap only worked if you were weak enough to fall into it. All ships, full assault formation, break through their lines and proceed to the inner system. Leave no survivors. The Scraith fleet surged forward, weapons charging, shields raised. They were confident, aggressive, ready to overwhelm the defenders through sheer numbers and ferocity. Aboard the Perseverance, Vasquez watched them come. "Hold position. Don't fire until they're fully committed to the debris field." The tension on the bridge was suffocating. Every instinct screamed to engage, to start shooting, to do something. But Vasquez had learned patience over 7 months of hunting. She waited. The Scraith fleet entered the debris field, their formation spreading out to navigate the obstacles. Ships scattered slightly, creating gaps in their formation. They were 200,000 kilometers into the field when Vasquez gave the order. "Now, all ships engage. Activate FTL inhibitors." Spring the trap. The debris field exploded with violence. The disguised mines activated simultaneously, detonating in a carefully calculated pattern that didn't destroy the Scraith fleet but channeled it, herded it, forced it deeper into the killing zone. The FTL inhibitors activated, creating a sphere of disrupted space-time that made jumping away impossible. The Council fleet opened fire from prepared positions, their weapons targeting the Scraith ships that had been separated from the main formation. The Velkari cruisers used their speed to dart between asteroids, striking quickly and retreating. The Chromath dreadnoughts anchored key positions, their heavy weapons hammering at the enemy's larger vessels. The Ishan destroyers used their psychic targeting to coordinate attacks, focusing fire on critical targets. But the Scraith fought back with desperate fury. Plasma bolts filled the space between ships. Kinetic weapons tore through hulls. Energy beams sliced through armor. The battle became chaos, ships exploding on both sides, debris mixing with destroyed vessels. Warlord Crotch saw his formation fragmenting and snarled orders. "Focus all fire on the human ship. The Perseverance is the heart of their defense. Kill it and they'll break." 50 Scraith warships turned toward the Perseverance, abandoning their other targets. They charged in a wedge formation, weapons blazing, intent on overwhelming the human vessel through sheer concentrated firepower. Commander Park's voice was tight with alarm. "Captain, we have 50 hostiles inbound on attack vector. They're going for a ramming attack if we don't break position." Vasquez looked at the tactical display. If the Perseverance moved, it would create a gap in the defensive line. The Scraith fleet would break through and the battle would become a running fight all the way to Earth. She couldn't allow that. All hands, brace for impact. Engineering, route all power to armor and point defense. We're going to take everything they have and we're going to survive it. The crew looked at her like she was insane. Park opened his mouth to protest.
Captain, that's suicide.
That much concentrated fire will destroy us. No, Vasquez said calmly. It won't, because the Perseverance wasn't built to dodge. It was built to endure. This is what we were designed for. Now strap in and trust our armor. The 50 Scraith ships closed, firing everything they had. Plasma bolts slammed into the Perseverance's hull. Kinetic rounds impacted with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. Energy beams burned across the armor plating. The ship shuddered with each impact, alarms blaring, damage reports flooding in. But the armor held. The Perseverance's point defense systems worked overtime, shooting down missiles and torpedoes before they could impact. The layered ablative plating absorbed energy weapons, each layer burning away to protect the ones beneath. The kinetic dampening systems redistributed the force of physical impacts across the entire hull structure. And through it all, the Perseverance kept firing. Its railguns never stopped, methodically targeting enemy ships, each shot precise and deadly. Not trying to dodge, not trying to run, just taking the punishment and hitting back. The Scraith ships closed for ramming attacks, desperate to destroy the human vessel. 3 ships came in on kamikaze runs, their crews intent on crashing into the Perseverance at maximum velocity. Brace, Park shouted. The first ship hit at 50 kilometers per second. The impact was catastrophic, tearing a massive wound in the Perseverance's starboard side. The second ship followed, smashing into the port side. The third aimed for the bridge section itself.